All right. So, um, how did y'all do with watching the live recorded lecture for chapter two? Did you guys one and two? Remember how last week on Thursday I didn't have much of a voice, and so we kind of jumped over that, and I posted a live recording lecture. Was that helpful, or does anybody need to go over any information from chapters one or two that you have questions about? Okay. So as you can tell, my voice is a little bit stronger today. And I had a class on Tuesdays from 10:45 to 1:30. So same thing I have on Thursdays. So I think I would say I'm like 90% better. So hopefully by next week I will be 100%. All right. So chapter three, we're going to talk a little bit about food cost. We're going to talk about when our ingredients become part of our food cost. And we're going to talk a little bit about some math formulas that we can do to make sure that we are maintaining the standard that we set. Okay. So, what is food cost? The cost of food. Okay, cool. So, how would you explain it to somebody who's like, I don't know, like a child? So a child says, what is food cost? How would you explain it to them that they would understand it?
of when when it's like bought, when someone buys food.
Okay, so we buy food, we buy ingredients. Okay. Is it part of our food cost when we buy the ingredients?
Yes.
No. It's not just because we bought it doesn't mean it's part of our food cost yet. It only becomes part of our food cost when we use it, right? So if I buy a 50-pound bag of flour, but I only use 10 pounds of it, the food cost is the cost of those 10 pounds of flour. The other 40 pounds I haven't used yet because I haven't used it to make food to sell. Okay. So product only becomes part of our food cost when we use it to produce recipes or produce goods to serve. Okay. So you can put that in your own words, however you want to, but it only becomes part of our food cost when we use it to make food to sell. That's it. If it's sitting on our inventory, if it's still in our inventory closet, if it's still in our storage room, it's not part of food cost yet because I haven't used it. It's still sitting and waiting for me to use. Okay. So this is a very basic way of calculating our food cost. Okay. How many of you have taken inventory before? If you worked retail or worked in food service, how many of you have actually done inventory? Okay. I see a few hands. Anybody online have done inventory? Is it a fun process? Is it a long process? Yeah. Is it necessary? Absolutely. We want to know where our food is going, where our ingredients or where our product is going, right? If we're working retail, do we want to make sure that we can account for all the different products that we have? Okay. So we have to do an inventory first to figure out what the dollar amount of our beginning inventory is. Okay. And then if we purchase items, we purchase ingredients, does that add to our inventory or does it take it away from our inventory? If we purchase more ingredients, it adds to it, right? So we're going to add our period purchases for that particular period. And this gives us our total available inventory. That's all the money, that's all the ingredients we have available to sell that particular period of time. Okay. And then we have ending inventory. We go in and we do inventory one more time. We calculate it. Is it part of our food cost if it's still in our inventory? Not yet. So we're going to subtract that ending inventory, and that gives us our cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold. So all the sales, all the money that we brought in, okay, this tells us how much the ingredients cost to make all of that food. Okay. It could be food, it could be beverages, whatever. But that's the cost of our goods sold. So if we think about our triangle, we have percent, we have sales. This cost is what goes in the top portion of our triangle. That's the dollar amount. That's how we figure out, right? All the other examples I've given you so far, I've just pulled numbers out of the air. But this is how we actually find the dollar amount to figure out our cost in that top portion of the triangle. Okay? We don't know our percentage. We have to compare our cost to our sales to get our percentage, right? So if I find my cost with this formula, where do I find the number for sales? How do I find out what that number is? Where would I look? If I was a manager, where would I look? I want to know what my total sales are.
Look at the cost percent.
No, we don't know the percentage yet. We're trying to figure out the percentage. That's a good thought. We're trying to figure out what our percentage is. All right, so we've done the math. This is how much it cost us to make all the food. Where do I find the dollar amount that tells me how much money I brought in? How much sales I brought in?
Tickets.
The tickets. Yeah, I can look at the computer system. The computer system will tell me how much money and sales I brought in. And that's the number I put here. And I divide the two to find out what my percentage is. And then I compare it. If I budgeted for 30% food cost, and based on this number and my ticket sales, if I'm at 31, then I know that I spent too much money. Okay? So that kind of just ties all the three chapters together. Let's do another example together with actual numbers. Okay? So I have a beginning inventory of 3,500. I spend $10,000 during that period. So that means I have $13,500 total available inventory. Okay? 13,500 total available for me to spend. Okay? Now, end of the month, I go into my inventory, I count everything up, and comes to find out that I still have $2,500 worth of inventory left. So I have to subtract that. And what do I get?
11,000.
$11,000. That means during the month of February, I spent $11,000 in ingredients to make all the food and the beverages that I sold. It's the cost of goods sold. So everything that I sold, it cost me $11,000 in ingredients to make that. Okay? Questions, comments, concerns about that? Let me give you an in-class example. Okay? So my shelf over here normally is stocked full of snacks. I will have it stocked on Thursday. I'm going to Sam's tomorrow, so I'm gonna go buy some new snacks for the shelves in there, right? I can calculate how much all of those snacks cost. I can count how many snacks are on there. I can count how much each one costs. And I can figure out a total dollar amount. That's my beginning inventory. Okay. And then you guys come in and you eat some snacks, which you're welcome to do. Once you see snacks up there, you don't have to ask, just don't go crazy. Okay. But if you need a snack to get you through class, a little sugar pick me up, that's fine. Go over there, help yourself to a snack or two. come back to your seat, have a seat, enjoy, right? When you all leave, I can go back to that shelf and I can count the value of the snacks that remaining. That's my ending inventory. So I can determine how much you as a class eat in snacks. Okay. Then when my next class comes in, how do I know what my beginning inventory is? Do I have to go count that all over again? Why?
You just minus what the other class has.
Right. So I'm going to look at my ending inventory from the previous period, and that becomes my new beginning inventory. Because ideally, there should be no product missing. Once I do my ending inventory and I start a brand new period, that time in between there should be no product used. Okay. So that means that's my new beginning inventory. So let's do this one together. Actually, go ahead and do it on your own. Those of you who are online, go ahead and type your answer for cost of goods sold in the chat. Those of you who are here in class, you can calculate the cost of goods sold and compare your answer to your neighbors and see if they have the same answer. So I didn't know if you needed some paper to write on, make some notes. If you do, you can use your own. I just had it handy. Excellent. I see some answers coming in online. Again, those of you who are in class, if you want to share your answers, compare your answers with your neighbor, see, or if you need help, ask your neighbor, hey, what step do I do? How do I get started? Y'all can work together.
Subtract 3,500.
All right, you should have gotten 13,500. Okay. So that is the cost of our goods sold. Let's check the chat. Excellent. 13,500. Love it. Awesome. Thanks, y'all. Okay, 13,500. That means it costs us $13,500 to sell the cost of the ingredients to sell all the food that we sold. Okay. So February cost us 11,000. March cost us 13,500. Is that good or bad?
Bad.
Why is it bad?
His cost went up.
So that we did spend more money, but why might we spend more money in March than we did in February?
Customers influence.
Okay, so customers, we might have more customers. Why might we have more customers in March than we do in February?
Spring.
So it's the spring. Okay, good. What else? How many days are in February? 28. How many days in March? 31. So we have 3 extra days potentially. Okay. Although that may not have like too terribly much of a difference. What else happens in March that does not happen in February?
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day is one. Okay. Right before St. Patrick's Day is
There's a holiday before.
there's a holiday before St. Patrick's Day. It is for you all spring break. Are y'all not counting down the days to spring break? This is week 3, which means we have 5 weeks left till spring break. Okay.
Surprise me.
Spring break is coming up in March, right? So we might be busier for that. Okay. something that might be a little bit different. As a manager, you have to become an investigator. Okay. So it's not bad that we spend more money in March. Now, if we budgeted to spend 13,000, but we spent 13,500, is that bad?
Yes.
Possibly. Okay. If we budgeted to spend 13,000 and we budgeted to make, I don't know, $30,000 in sales, but if I spent $500 more, but I got $35,000 in sales, that's a really good deal, right? So again, these numbers don't really mean anything until you put them into context. You have to be able to become a detective to figure out what does this number mean? How does that compare to my other numbers to be able to say, yes, this is a good number, this is a bad number. Okay. All right. So the other thing that we want to talk about are transfers. The formula that I just gave you was a very simple formula to figure out your food cost, right? It's the cost of all the goods sold. That includes food and beverages. But we might have to transfer, okay? When does a liquid ingredient, who can give me an example of a liquid ingredient being part of your food cost?
Cooking oil.
Okay, so cooking oil, yes. Cooking oil should always be part of your food cost because we don't usually consume cooking oil, okay? However, what's a beverage that we might consume just as a beverage, but it might be used in a recipe for food?
Alcohol.
What's that?
You saying wine?
Wine? Okay, sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Sorry. Wine, yeah. And so if the wine normally goes to the bar, we have to take the value of the cost of that wine and subtract it from the bar and add it to the food to get a good, accurate food cost percentage. Okay. Anybody online have any comments? Let's look. Yep, wine. Okay, alcohol. Yep, cool. What about going the opposite direction? What about food, things that we normally eat, but because it's used in a recipe for a beverage, it now becomes part of our beverage cost? Like what? Lemons? Okay, yeah, absolutely. Think about garnishes that we put on drinks. So lemons, oranges, pineapple, bacon. If you put bacon in your Bloody Marys, which I highly recommend because it's very good. What's that?
Strawberries.
Strawberries as part of a smoothie, or even just a strawberry on the edge of the glass, okay, as a garnish. Let's see. Vegetables, cherries, olives, strawberries. Yep, excellent. All of those things that are traditionally food items, we would need to subtract them from our food cost and add them to our beverage cost. So that way we can keep an accurate dollar amount to figure out what our food cost is compared to our beverage cost. Okay. The other transfer we might do is from unit to unit. So some properties they may have multiple units, like multiple restaurants, like in different hotels or resorts. Okay. But when I worked at I worked at TGI Fridays, but not that one. When I worked at Chester's Hamburgers in high school, sometimes one store would be really busy and they would start running low on meat. And so they might call my store where I was working and say, "Hey, manager, we're really busy. We're down to our last 2 boxes of meat. Do you have any extra that you can spare?" So my manager would go and look at our inventory, look at how many hours we have left till closing, look at our volume of business, and they would say, "Yes, I've got 3 boxes of meat that you can have." Okay. And you're also probably going to need some buns if you don't have the buns to go with the meat that you're serving. Okay. So they say, "Hey, David, can you take these 3 boxes of meat and these 4 packages of buns? Can you take them over to this other store?" Okay. And I'm going to say yes, because why? Because they give me free food. Then rather than pay me for money for gas, they'll just say, "Hey, we'll buy your food tonight for dinner and you can have whatever you want." So yeah, of course, I'm going to take that. So I take that food over there. Well, the cost of that meat and that cost of those buns it has to be transferred to that other store. Okay? Because otherwise, that store is going to sell a whole lot more hamburgers, right? But their cost is down here if we don't add that cost on. My store, my cost is going to be super high, but I'm going to have less hamburgers sold. And so it's going to throw things off. We have to transfer the cost of that over to the other store so we can keep our accounting correct. Okay. So that's the idea behind transfers is that we have to document this is what we did, this is why we did it, this is how much it cost, so we can keep our accounting straight. All right. So, think about how you would explain to a 5-year-old what a standardized recipe is. How would you explain to a 5-year-old what a standardized recipe is? Think about it for a second. Anybody online have any comments they'd like to share? How would you explain to a 5-year-old what a standardized recipe is? Anybody want to share? Okay, how would you explain to a 10-year-old what a standardized recipe is? Maybe we went too young. Okay, so Samantha, it is something common. Okay, good. What else? What is a standardized recipe? How would you describe it to somebody? Okay, so how a peanut butter and jelly sandwich is made. So it's going to include what? Directions on how to make something. Instructions for quality food. Caitlin, that's a great example. Okay. Standardized recipe. What is a benefit? Why do we have standardized recipes? Anybody?
So we always get the same product.
So we always get that same product, that same result over and over and over again. How many have ever been to a restaurant before where you go all the time? And you might sit down and ask, hey, who's cooking tonight? Because if Johnny's cooking, then I'm going to order the chicken fried steak. But if Johnny's not cooking, I'm not going to order the chicken fried steak because nobody does it as good as Johnny does. Anybody ever had that experience before? No? Okay. Um, sometimes we want to make sure that, not sometimes, we always want to make sure that that product is consistent. So we follow that standardized recipe. Okay. I'll give you an example. When I worked for TGI Fridays, we had a dessert. Okay. So I'm going to show you the standard recipe. Okay. And this was Dessert by David. So at TGI Fridays, if you go to any TGI Fridays and order the same dessert, it's supposed to look the same no matter where you go, right? And so they had a brownie in the middle, stick that brownie in the microwave, let the top layer of chocolate get melted. And then they would take caramel sauce and you go like this. They're like this giant packet of caramel that looked like a giant ketchup packet. You put that in the microwave, get that hot. So then you squeeze the caramel on top. And then you squeeze the chocolate the opposite direction. Okay. And then you take the almonds and put a little bit of almonds on top of the ice cream scoop. Okay. Now, I'm like, I could do better, right? I was a culinary student at St. Philip's College. We were learning about plating, and I learned that you don't put the sauce on top because you're going to cover up what looks beautiful. So what do? You put the sauce on the plate, and then you put the item on top. So what I did was not only did I take my caramel, but I punctured a little tiny hole in the caramel, right? And so when you squeeze it out, it creates these really cool squiggly lines. So now I've got like squiggly lines of caramel all over the place. And then that fudge, I was like, you know what? That just looked like this big, giant, nasty zigzag of fudge. So I'm going to take my fudge And I'm just going to do this really cool like pattern all the way across the rim of the plate. Okay. It looked way better in person than in this picture. And then rather than taking the almonds and just put like sliced almonds on top, I would take them and crush them up really fine in my hand. And then I would sprinkle them all over the edge on top of that chocolate. Okay. And then I'd put that brownie on top. Put the ice cream on top. And then I'd put that cherry or the whipped cream. The whipped cream, no, I'm not gonna put the whipped cream on top. I'm gonna do whipped cream in like four different little small little bursts, right? My manager was like, David, what is that? Kristen, I probably gave her a heart attack so many times because I was 19 and I thought I knew everything. And she's like, what is that? And I said, well, this looks much better than this, right? And she's like, yeah, but that's not the specifications. That's not the standard recipe. You have to do the specifications because then that way, if Jasmine orders it from you and then she goes and she's traveling and she's in Chicago and she goes to TGI Fridays and she orders it, it's going to look exactly the same. That's that consistency of the brand. And I was like, yeah, but the brand is boring, right? But which one? Option A or option B? Which one do you think is more easily replicable? A. So everyone can do A, right? And so she said, okay, here's the thing. You can keep doing it your way. And the reason why she let me keep doing it my way is because I told her because I punctured a little tiny hole, I only used half a package of caramel. I use only a half a package of fudge. So I could get twice as much caramel and fudge for every dessert that I sell than version A. Okay. And she's like, okay, you can do your version, but you have to tell your guests that they're only going to get it if they sit with you. Bing, light bulb goes off. And that's when Desserts by David was developed. And every time I would drop off a dessert, like, here's a Desserts by David. This is custom. The next time you come, it may be different. I don't know. Whatever I'm in the mood of, like, whatever thing I learned in culinary school that day, I might do it a little differently, right? And so I made that connection with my guests. Now, I will tell you, if I was Kristen today and one of my employees tried to get away with B, I'd be like, no, you got to do A. So I was fortunate to have an amazing boss that let me break the brand standard a little bit, but she should not have let me. Okay. So that's a good story about going independent, having your own place and your own ability to develop the plating and the recipes versus a brand that says you have to do it this way for brand consistency. Okay. But yeah. And then there were people that would literally come and they would wait because Saturday night was a long wait. And they would wait an extra 20, 30 minutes until a table in my section freed up so that they could come in and then have Desserts by David. And then one time when I was working at Cheesecake Factory, I left TGI Fridays to work at Cheesecake Factory. And it was a really busy Friday night, crazy busy. We're pumping out cheesecakes like nobody's business, right? In the bakery. And I'm putting whipped cream on. And in the busy lobby of Cheesecake Factory at North Star Mall, I hear, oh my God, your Desserts by David. I looked around and I was like, oh my God, Rochelle, what are you doing here? But she remembered the Desserts by David. So when she saw me at Cheesecake Factory, that's the kind of connection we want to have with our guests. And that's the ability to do that. So that was a much bigger tangent than I took yesterday about standardized recipes. But it is very important for us to do the standardized recipes so that the guests get the same thing over and over again. Okay? So, how are we doing on time? Okay, we're good on time. The recipe will also tell us what are the specifications for the product. So we have two different specifications, quality versus quantity. Okay. Quality versus quantity. And the recipe will tell us what is the quality of ingredients, the quality of the ingredients we need for the recipe. Okay. So, Brianna, give me any general ingredient that we might find in the kitchen. It's a very general category of ingredient.
Eggs.
Eggs. Good. I like this one. Okay. Eggs. What are some different qualities or different types of eggs that we might use in the kitchen?
They're great.
Okay, so I'm gonna pull up my chat to see if I get anybody in here. Okay, so we might have raw eggs. We might have yolks only, right? Think about how you're gonna buy eggs to bring them into your kitchen, right? We might have egg whites. What else? So yes, Caitlin, you are giving me boiled egg and poached eggs. That's what we're going to do to the eggs, but we don't buy eggs poached. Okay. So what type of ingredient, what type of egg should we buy if we want to poach an egg?
Grade A.
Okay, so we might have the grade. Grade A. So Jordan says carton liquid eggs. Yes, you can actually buy eggs that are already scrambled up in a carton. So you don't have to crack the eggs and then whip them up and scramble them, right? So we might have liquid eggs. Okay, what else?
Powdered.
We might have powdered. Good. Cage free. Are they organic? Okay. Fresh from a farm. Brianna, did you know there are this many types of eggs when you said eggs as your example? Okay. We also might have the size. Are they medium, large, extra large? In baking, we like to use large eggs. Why? If we're using raw eggs in the shells, why do we typically like to use large eggs in our recipes? Anybody know? Because traditionally, a large egg is about 2 ounces of egg. So when you scramble the yolk and the white together, it comes out to about 2 ounces of eggs. Now, if you are a baker here at St. Philip's, you're probably using liquid eggs and you're measuring out exactly 2 ounces. But the home baker might just take a large egg, crack it, and that's about 2 ounces, roughly 2 ounces. Okay. Cage freeze. Yes. Samantha, what animal did our eggs come from? Are they quail eggs, duck eggs? Are y'all familiar with balut? Anybody familiar with balut?
Yes.
So I had the opportunity to try balut when I went to the Philippines last September. It's basically a boiled duck egg with it's been fertilized, so the duck embryo is starting to grow. And so you crack the top open and then you drink the juice on the inside, and then you just eat the egg that has the baby chicken. It was really interesting. I wanted to experience the culture. So yeah, what kind of animal is it? Is it a chicken? Is it a turkey? Is it a quail? Is it a duck? Okay. So good. Our recipe will tell us this. Okay. If I'm making poached eggs, can I use liquid eggs to make poached eggs? No. If I'm trying to make sunny side up or fried eggs, I need to use raw eggs in the shell. Okay. If I'm just whipping up a bunch of scrambled eggs for like an omelet station, I could probably buy liquid eggs. That saves me time in having to crack all those shells and whip all those eggs up. Okay. Our recipe will tell us what we can or cannot substitute. Okay. Quantity, Quantity essentially is how much do we buy? Do we buy a dozen? Do we buy 15 dozen? Do we buy quarts? Do we buy 10 pounds of powdered eggs? That quantity is just basically how much do we buy. And again, our recipe will tell us. If it's a recipe that we make every so often, where maybe we don't need to buy a whole bunch, we just buy a small portion. But if it's a really popular menu item, we're going to buy a whole lot. So that quantity is going to be the amount that we buy. The other ways that our recipe will help us is to determine our portion size. So our recipe will tell us how many portions we're supposed to get out of that recipe. So if it tells me that I'm supposed to get 30 servings, what happens if I only get 28 servings? Is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
Yes. Because if I'm supposed to get 30, I'm supposed to be able to sell 30. But if I only get 28, then that means I can't sell those last two, which means the cost of all of these have gone up. It costs me the same amount to make for 30, but I only get money in for 28. That's a big deal. Okay. What if my recipe makes 30 and I was able to get 34 servings? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? If I had a recipe that got me 30 servings and I got 34 servings out of it, what does that tell me about the size of those 34 servings?
Small.
They're a little bit smaller. So is our guest going to be happy if they're paying the same price, but they're getting less product, less sales, or less amount of their food? Not going to be happy. Okay. So when our recipe says 30, we need to get 30. Okay. So our recipe, we can verify based on weight, volume, and count. What ingredients do we usually measure by weight? What general category of ingredients?
Try.
Not dry.
General category.
Solid.
Yes, they are typically solid. Okay. Starts with the letter P. General category of not produce.
Protein.
Protein. There we go. Usually our proteins. So you have a 18-ounce steak. That's by weight. You have a quarter-pound burger. That's a weight. Or a third of a pound burger. Okay. The protein is typically done by weight. Sometimes if you go to like the deli, they might have sides like potato salad and macaroni salad. They do by weight as well. Okay. But primarily it's protein. Volume, Caitlin, you said it, is liquid. So liquids, what are some examples of things, ingredients that we might sell by the volume? What's that?
Syrup.
Syrup. Okay, yeah. So when we have that recipe for that pancake or that waffle plate, it's going to get 2 ounces of syrup. That's a liquid, that's a volume measurement. Okay. Soup. Good. Absolutely. Chicken broth. So soup, we are going to be doing a volume measurement. Okay. Typically, a cup of soup is about 6 ounces of soup. Okay. A bowl of soup is usually 8 ounces. So 2 ounce difference. What's the price difference usually between a cup of soup and a bowl of soup? Pretty significant, right? So that's why they're always like, hey, try to sell bowls of soup. If you sell a bowl of soup, we're only going to be serving them 2 more ounces. And that price difference gives us more profit on that bowl of soup. Okay. So just something to think about. Liquid is all of those things. Soup, drinks. So beverages, juice, milk, coffee, all of those things we measure by volume. And then count. What are some things that we might measure by count? Think about when you order something at a restaurant, a recipe or an item that's served with a certain number of an item.
Dumplings.
Shrimp.
Okay, so good. I'm gonna go ahead and put appetizers because I heard shrimp, I heard dumplings. Okay, sometimes baked goods, good. Coda, thank you. The sides are often done by the count. Okay, so appetizers, those types of things are typically done by count. So let me demonstrate a standardized recipe real quick. I have my plate here. Okay, 4 ounces of salad. Okay. 3 tomato wedges. Two ounces of dressing on the side. Weight, count, volume. So one standardized recipe, the tomatoes are going to go exactly where you see them. So that if 3 of us order salads, when they get dropped at our table, our salads look exactly the same. Okay, that standardized recipe. We're going to talk more about this next class, but what I want you to get out of this particular slide is that volume and weight are not always the same. They're not always equal. What do I mean by that? Who can put that into context of an actual ingredient in our kitchen?
Volume and weight are not.
Say that again, Jan?
No, I was just reading off.
Oh, so volume and weight are not always the same. Let's look on chat. Flour. Okay, Jordan, we're going to use flour. What is the volume of 1 cup? How many ounces are in 1 cup? 8 ounces. Okay, 8 ounces of volume. Does that 1 cup of flour weigh 8 ounces? Does not. If I take 1 cup of brown sugar, that's 8 ounces of brown sugar in volume, but does it weigh 8 ounces? No. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So even different types of flour, pastry flour, bread flour, all-purpose flour, almond flour. I can take a same 1 cup of each one of those, and they're all volume 8 ounces, but they all weigh something different. Okay. So when we go through our project, which I will introduce in week 5, so 2 more weeks till our project. When we introduce the project, I'll actually give you a website that will convert it for you. You put in the weight, you put in the volume, and it will give you the weight equivalent for that. Okay. This is the last thing that we're going to cover today. All right. So in your notes, this is going to help you with your homework assignment. So I would take a notes for this. Okay. Edible yield and as purchased. Okay, so EP is equal to edible portion. Right, edible portion. Y percentage is equal to the edible yield. And then AP is equal to as purchased. As purchased. Okay. edible portion, edible yield, and as purchased. So as purchased, when I bring that box of 25 pounds of bell peppers into my store, into my restaurant, that is the as purchased amount. That's the as purchased weight. Now, as I prepare those bell peppers, okay, if I'm going to cut them, chop them, take the seeds out, take the stem off, maybe I'm going to cut the tops and bottoms off so it's a nice, beautiful, even length. So my julienne are very consistent, right? All that product that I discarded, the tops, the bottoms, the stems, the seeds, all of that still weighs something. It's part of that 25 pounds, but I'm not going to serve it. Okay. Do I throw it away? What would you do? Would you throw it away?
I can make stock with it.
You can make vegetable stock with it. Good. Does it matter how your red peppers are chopped if you're making a red pepper sauce? No. So you might go ahead and save those extra little bits, and then you make a red pepper sauce out of those because you're going to blend it up anyways. That would then increase the yield percentage because then you're only going to be throwing away the seeds and the stem, pretty much. Everything else is being used. Okay. So this works the exact same way as our food cost pyramid triangle. So we have our division sign and we have our multiplication sign. Same triangle, different things that we are looking at. Okay. So if I am looking for my edible yield right here, which is my yield percentage, if I'm looking for that yield percentage, I cover that up, and what's left over? Edible portion, EP divided by
AP.
as purchased, the AP. Okay, so we take our edible portion of 8.5 pounds, divide by the 10 pounds of bell peppers, and we get 85%. That is my edible yield. Okay. Now there is this wonderful book of yields. You can buy a book of yields or find it online, and it'll actually tell you, on average, bell peppers have a yield of 85%. I don't know if that's true or not. Don't quote me on that. Okay. But it'll tell you that percentage. Okay. Now, I have 25 pounds of bell peppers. How much do I need to, or how much will I have left over after that 25 pounds? After I've processed that 25 pounds, how much will I have left over? Well, I have 25. Do I have my percentage?
You can use the
Well,
one.
you can use the
We
previous.
used the one before, 85%. If I did 85% for 10 pounds, then I should have 85% of 25 pounds. So if I'm looking for my EP, cover that up, and what's left over?
uh,
21.
Edible yield.
Edible yield times the AP. So I'm going to multiply my edible yield times 0.85, and I'm going to get what?
21.25.
21.25 pounds. So if I have a recipe that calls for 22 pounds of bell peppers, can I just order 25 pounds and be done with it? No, because I'm going to be short 3/4 of a pound. That's why it's important that you understand the concept of edible portion, because we're going to lose product. Okay. If my recipe calls for 50 pounds of bell peppers, I can't just order two 25-pound boxes, because by the time I cut those stems off and take the seeds out, I'm going to have less weight. Okay. And so sometimes you have to start with a little bit more to end up with the amount your recipe calls for. And last thing, This is the one that's super important. If I need 35 pounds, how much do I actually need to order? So if I'm looking for my AP, I cover that up and what's left over? Edible portion divided by the yield factor, the yield percentage, okay? And so I divide 35, that's what I need for my recipe, divide by 0.85 equals, it should be larger than 35 pounds.
31.18 rounded,
31,
or 41,
41. Thank you. 41.18.
18.
We're gonna, oh, we can't round it up to 2
That's up.
because it's product.
Yeah.
All right. So we need 41.18 pounds.
I think you already rounded up because I got 41.
It's rounded, yeah.
17.6.
Yeah, no, the decimal place is rounded, that's fine. But I'm talking like we can't round it up to 41.2 because that represents product, okay? So 41.8 pounds. Now, do I just order 41.8 pounds? That's a weird number. So I might order 45 pounds, okay? I'll have a little bit extra just in case something wrong happens. As a little bit of like a safety net, okay? So this is how we can determine how much we need to buy in order to how much we need to buy in order to cover what we need. Now, I'll tell you this, most recipes, right? Your recipe can build in this factor. So if you get a recipe that says you need to order 25 pounds, it's probably banking on the fact that you're going to be taking out some of it to prepare for that recipe of 32 servings, okay? So you can, as you're writing your recipes, build that in, okay? Build in that edible yield, that yield percentage. So that way, when you're doing your ordering, okay, I'm going to make this for this number of people. This is how much I need to order, okay? Then you don't have to really think about adding more to it. Question mark about that? I don't know why I said question mark. Questions? Have y'all ever left a voicemail? But then you forget that you're leaving a voicemail and you think it's a voice to text, and so you include punctuation, like question mark, period. And you realize you're being an idiot because you don't have to do that because it's a voicemail. Awesome. Okay, cool. That is all I have for today. When we come to class next week, or not next week, sorry, next class period, when we come to class next, we are going to be costing out some recipes. So I'm going to introduce the costing out recipes. Now you may have, if you've taken lab classes, you may have some format from your professors. I'm going to teach you the way that I do it. Okay. And then you get all this information. One teacher does it this way, one teacher does it this way. And then you decide what method works best for you, or maybe a combo method. And you develop your own method of doing it. Okay. So I'm going to show you my step-by-step process for costing out recipes. Okay. Now, disclaimer, because last semester I got in trouble with some students that were online. They were really upset because I am bringing cupcakes next week. And some people online said they would, last semester said they would have come in had they known I was giving cupcakes. So on Thursday, I'll have cupcakes and we're going to cost out the recipe. And if you get it right, you get a cupcake. And then if you don't get it right, you can go make corrections. And then once the corrections are correct, you get a cupcake. Those of you who are online, I'm so sorry I can't give cupcakes digitally. But you'll still be doing the same work. All right. So if you would like to come in on Wednesday or Thursday, sorry, if you want to come in on Thursday, we will have cupcakes to enjoy. And I'll have fresh snacks on the shelf because I get the cupcakes from Sam's. All right. Thank you all so much. Any questions online? All right. Thank you all so much. I will see you all next week. Not next week. I'll see you on Thursday.